Gosh, that's a lot of people. How am I going to perform in front of all of them? What will they think of me? What if they make fun of my weird baby hands? Oh god, I have really weird baby hands.
Is this thing on? Alright, everyone. Welcome to the third and final game of the annual Pachycephalosaurid Gauntlet of Challenges. As some of you may know, we have already hosted 2 challenges previous to this. Try to explain to the audience what the last challenges were.
Yes. Well, the previous challenges were the Whack-O-Wen, in which contestants must ram Owen's head as hard as they possibly can on the target. Out of 10. We've also hosted the Run from an Active Volcano challenge, in which contestants are judged by their proficiency in going with the pyroclastic flow.
That's the sound of sizzling.
1 out of 10. And today we're hosting the final challenge, the trademark Packy Beauty Strut.
Yes. In this next game, contestants must do a beauty strut across this runway, beginning at the VHS copy of Jurassic Park 3, and ending doing their dance at the copy of Dinotopia on DVD. They will then be judged 1 through 10 on their performance.
Psst. Hey,
what is it?
Why is the Jurassic World Packy not here?
Oh, he's still recovering from the volcano.
Okay, but what about the other one?
He's still in box. Anyway, our first contestant is an old friend, and the oldest one here, the Series 2 Packy. Very good, very good, very good. Next contestant. Shut your fucking mouth! Next contestant.
Sure is crazy what's happening up there.
Yeah, man, I love the view.
Ow. I bet it's because I'm not a Packy, huh?
No, it's because you're a fucking dragon.
For the last time, I'm not a dragon.
No, disqualified. Anyway, our next contestant is the newest Pachycephalosaurid figure on the market. Introducing the Hammond collection, Stygimoloch.
Stygimoloch, yeah, yeah,
Oh, my eyes.
Stygimoloch, yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a Stygimoloch. A Stygimoloch, yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a Stygimoloch. A Stygimoloch, yeah, yeah.
Whoa, don't you know that guy? We were friends back in, like, high school. Could've sworn there was more of him. Oh. Ah, jeez. Wait a sec. Why aren't you on the ground? Oh, I have glass eyes. Oh, same. Wait, you have eyes? Yeah.
1 out of 10. Hey.
Today we're looking at the Mattel Jurassic World True FX Hammond Collection Stygimoloch from Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Alright, so I don't really know how to start this review off, so let's get into the box. Starting off, we got the
artwork of the render from 2018 right here. You can see the back of it right there with the Hammond Collection logo. True effects tag, still no explanation as to what that means. On the side here we have a screenshot from the film, Hammond Collection, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom logo. See, it's the logo from the movie it's from. Ah. Right here they have a copy-pasted description from the back here. Got renders of the figure. You can see the clear eye right there. You can very clearly see the eye. Keep that in mind. You can see down here you have the renders of the Raptor, Styggy, Trudon. This is your 3 sad babies. Alright, now listen to me read the description while I open the box. Trapped at the Lockwood Estate, Owen Grady devises a plan to put the domed head of the Stygimoloch to use. With a combination of whistling and wall breaking, Owen is able to free himself, Claire Deering, and the Stygimoloch from their caged cells. Alright, let's get this out of here. Before I get into articulation, let's get into size comparisons. Starting out, we're looking at a little under 4 inches for the height of this figure. Lengthwise, we're looking at about 7 inches. Here's the Styggy next to a Mattel 3 3/4 inch human. Here's the Styggy next to a Kenner 4 1/4 scale human. And here's Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Here's the Styggy facing a Mattel 2018 battle damaged Stygimoloch. Here he is next to the Kenner Ramhead Packy. Here he is next to the Lost World Kenner Packy. And finally, here he is next to a regular Mattel Attack Pack Velociraptor. Now, getting to articulation, we have a ball joint at the neck here. Do a 360 swivel. Look that much up. That much down. That much to the side. Likewise, it's gonna look like that, like that. These are both ball joints, so both parts can go on a swivel. Jaw can open that much, close like that. The arms are both on swivel hinges, so 360. Out that much, in that much at the elbow, out that much, in that much at the bicep, 360 swivel. Kind of tight, but that's not a complaint. Legs go all the way around, although struggles towards the front there. Knees go in that much, out that much, on 360 swivel as well, so turn all the way. Ankles are on a swivel hinge, up that much, down that much. And the hips are on a hinge, so they go out that much, in that much. Not as good range as the Raptors, which is a shame because these hips are really, really, really far out of the sculpt, which I think it would have been better if this was not here at all, as it makes almost no difference. And finally, the tail is on a 360 swivel. Can go that much to the right, that much to the left, that much up, that much down. And it's on the same type of wire as the Velociraptor figures. So we're looking at about that as the best curve you can get on this tail. Now, as far as posing goes, I'm going to flash up some pictures of some poses you can do with this figure. It's pretty limited, especially in the neck, which I think is kind of disappointing, but I think it makes up for it in other ways. Now that's over with, let's get into the positives. I guess one detail I like about the paintwork is that the underbelly paint goes onto the thigh here and actually goes down into the ankle, although it stops before it gets to the foot. So it looks alright, and I would say it's a good detail, and if this was not here, I'd say the figure would suffer greatly from it, so I appreciate that. The sculpt is fairly well detailed at the head here. You can see the head and neck detailing especially is like pretty crisp, as well as on the tail. You can see a lot of crisp detailing there, which I think is fairly commendable. You got the wrinkles around the belly there. And you've got fairly deep wrinkles on the thighs, neck, tail up here, and then also on the back of the calves here. This is kind of weird because stylistically I don't think any other Hammond collection has these deep like ridges and lines like that, so I think it makes this figure stand out just a little bit sculpturally from the other Hammond collection releases. Other than that, I just kind of have minor critiques. So first thing that I immediately want to point out is these glass eyes look okay from some angles, like see right there, you can see the pupil fairly well, but from most angles you can see, especially on this side, the eyeball is like completely black and you just cannot see anything. And this is fairly movie accurate. It's not like too big of an issue, but I do take a little bit of a problem with it because it's just kind of like, what's the point, you know? There's no reason to have these glass eyes if you're not even gonna have the people follow you, and also if you can't even tell they're glass a majority of the time. It's basically as if they just painted the eyes black or something. Like, I would have taken just painted eyes over this. Another issue with the eyes, real quick while we're still here, is that the pupil shape is wrong. It is circular. I think Marco Makes pointed this out on his story, but the pupil shape should be a goat eyeball instead of a circle. Another issue, sculpturally, is the body. The detailing on the body, legs, and arms is severely lacking, especially compared to the head and neck. It almost looks as if they sculpted these in a different resolution, because you can see there's some detailing there, but it's nowhere near as crisp as the detailing on the neck right here, on the head. It's really seeming like Mattel is putting all their effort into the head, which I appreciate, but it's also held back by other flaws, which I'll get into right now. My other main issue is this jaw hinge. While I'm glad they did do an articulated jaw, I really still do not understand why they're executing the jaw in the same way they've been doing it since the beginning of the line. This has been a long-running issue with Hammond Collection herbivores, but this jaw hinge is completely wrong anatomically and looks uncanny when you open it. But what it should be is, it should be the jaw right here with cheeks coming down to cover it, opening normally so that the beak does not look unhinged. This would be like if we open our mouths at our lips instead of at the back of our head, which is where our jaw connects. Another sculptural issue is on the feet right here. This is kind of weird, and I think I've talked about it on my Instagram story, but it seems as if Mattel sculpts their dinosaurs using base shapes, as in basic shapes like circles, and adds different detailing to them depending on what the figure is. So on Hammond Collection specifically, this is not an issue on mainline for some reason, but they seem, for limbs and hands, they just paste down a circle, flatten it, then sculpt the toes on, rather than pasting a circle down and then reshaping it into the shape of a foot. So you can see right here, you can physically see the line where the circle ends and the foot begins. You can see right there, there's a very clear line in the shape of a perfect circle going around the entire foot here. It's on here too, but it's a little less noticeable as it's hidden in the wrinkles fairly well. This issue could be avoided if Mattel just sculpted out the base shape as the foot. An example of this would be the 2018 Stygimoloch. You can see the shape of the legs here. While there is still a clear base shape, as a little bit of webbing here at the base of the toes, you can still tell that it is a foot. It's not a circle with toes, it's an actual foot sculpt. This is much more realistic and film accurate than the way they sculpt the foot here. So it's just a minor flaw that I've noticed on most HCs. Another sculptural flaw before I get into the paintwork, the bendy wire tail here is incredibly limited in range, not just because the wire is done poorly, but the tip of the tail here curves upward. Now, I'm not sure why they did this, because on almost every single image of the Stygimoloch, the tail is curved downward at the tip. But on this figure specifically, the curved up tail severely limits posing, because no matter what pose you do it in, the tip of the tail will always have a slight bend at the tip. Now, this was also an issue with the Hammond Collection Tiger Raptor, but I didn't get to mention it fully there, because it was less noticeable. But here, it's very clear. This is weird and fairly inaccurate, and it would have been better if the tip of the tail just ended in either a straight line or bent down slightly like that. Especially because when you try to recreate the image on the box with the render, it makes it incredibly difficult because the tip of the tail is pointing up instead of down. Now, another articulation flaw I've noticed, the neck range is severely limiting. You can see it can go down that much, but that is not nearly enough as you would hope for a Pachycephalosaurid figure. This is down sufficiently enough to basically do a ramming pose, but not nearly enough to make it look convincing or cool. I think the Hammond Collection Pachy had this issue too, but I'm not too sure because I don't own that figure. Now, this was an issue with the Tiger Raptor too, and I don't know what happened, because Hammond Collection Ghost has ball-jointed necks like this, and she can look up and down fairly well. I'm sure this issue might be able to be fixed if you cut some plastic, but again, I don't want to modify this figure, and you shouldn't have to modify your figures. One more sculptural issue before I get onto paint. The nasal horn right here is bending like that. I don't know if this was warped in box, and I've seen some other examples of this figure where this looks more normal, but for some reason on my copy, the ridge just bends backward, and it looks incredibly weird, and not at all like the film design. Compare this to 2018 Sticky. The nasal ridge goes up into a slight curve, but it goes up. It does not bend backward in a geometric triangle shape. Now, comparing this to the film design, the mainline one is more accurate. So I'm not too sure what happened here. I'm not sure if it's just warping or if the figure's sculpt is bad, but that is not correct for the film, and it should not be how it looks on a true FX figure. Now that that's done with, let's get into general paint issues. This is not about accuracy, just flaws with the paintwork. So first thing that stands out to me is the underbelly paint ends right here, when it should go at least to the tip. Like, for a $15 figure labeled as true FX, a fully painted toy is what you should generally expect. This also applies to the black striping on the tail, as it ends just shy of the tip right here. Now, other than that, now I don't know if you guys have all watched my Velociraptor review, but this was also an issue on the Raptor. Some areas of the paint were not fully painted. You can see, Mattel likely expects you to keep it in this position. You cannot tell it. This color begins farther than that color ends. But when you pose it down at all, you can very clearly see a large gap of brown between the paint there. This is very jarring, and not at all what you should expect from Mattel. This is actually a fairly large flaw that affects quite a bit of the parts on this figure. I would say this is the second worst. The very worst is that. Now, if you look here, you can see the underbelly paint, not only is it applied very thinly on the figure, so there's holes and gaps, but also there's a very large gap right there where the skin tone of the Sticky is exposed. This applies to both the top and bottom of the neck, however it's more noticeable on the bottom. This is a very big issue, especially because the neck area is the area you're going to be moving the absolute most on this figure. This thinly applied paint really badly affected the lower jaw paint of my Siggy. You can see right here there's a gigantic orange triangle just splotched right there because Mattel did not fully apply the paint. Also real quick, the dew claws and the fingernails are not painted. For a $15 figure, labeled as True FX, the nails should be painted. Another light issue, the hinges at the back of the knees here. This one is left almost unpainted, while this one is not. I believe this might be a symptom of paint chipping, as the Hammond Collection Geosternbergia had the same issue at the neck, where the hinges were too tight and made it so that the paint chipped off after bending it maybe twice. So I think Mattel just gave that area a little bit more leeway with the paint, or casted it in the light color and put the paint on the front here. That would look much better. And then one last issue with the paint, the dome looks very weird and unrealistic. I think this could have been made much better if this dome simply had a wash over it. Kind of like the Hammond Collection Triceratops. That figure had a wash on the horns, which made it look much more realistic and more detailed. And I think for a true FX figure with premium details for enhanced realism, a wash on this dome would have done the realism way more favors than this weird, uneven dry brushing that they've applied. You see, this dry brushing is applied very strangely. It's put on all around, which doesn't make sense for horns because you'd think horns would have deep, dark detailing in the crevices rather than all around on top of the surface. This just kind of makes it look like the figure was, like, burnt or something. It kind of looks like cooked cauliflower instead of the horns of the Stygimoloch. And then also, if you open the mouth, you can see the hinge at the back there, the very back of the throat, is unpainted. So it's just gray void in the mouth, which looks kind of odd, especially from the front. Let's get into paint. So, might not be picking up on camera. There it is. This figure is, like, not great balancing-wise. I think this might be the first time a Hammond Collection figure has been too front-heavy. So far, every raptor they've had, and every, like, small-scale theropod has an issue where they tip backwards because the tail is too heavy, due to this weird, thick, gross rubber and wire combo they use for the tail, but on this figure, it seems as if the front half might actually outweigh the back. Which isn't great, because this is a neutral pose. If your figure can't do a neutral pose, then you really need to work on the weight of the inside of it. My first note in regards to paint, this figure's body color is casted mostly in this reddish brown. This is very similar to the Hammond Collection Carnotaurus, where the original design is very clearly an orange, but the figure itself for some reason is a red. With the Carnotaurus is more acceptable because the Carnotaur is clearly a little bit more red, but the Styggy here is very much a shade of orange. You can see the color the body is casted in is more similar to the back color right here on the design. Another thing, this figure has a similar issue to the Raptor, where the underbelly paint is not nearly as extensive as it should be, especially in comparison to previous releases where it is close, if not almost exact, to how it should be. An example of this would be the mainline Battle Damage Stygimoloch figure. Okay, wow. I'm really having trouble standing these things today. Now, this figure has underbelly paint from the bottom of the jaw down all the way in this irregular pattern here to about there on the tail. It also appears on the leg here in this irregular kind of wavy pattern down into the calf, with this dark splotching down into the tail, as well as a little bit on the torso and the leg. Now, this is much more accurate to the film design than the Hammond Collection True FX version. You can see this figure is too red. The underbelly color is not irregular on the thigh. The underbelly color does not go into the tail at all, even though on the design, you can see here, the underbelly color goes down to the very, very tip of the tail right there. While my copy has kind of faded paint at the tail, it does attempt to recreate that irregular splotching. You can see here very faintly, the splotches of tan kind of go up into the tail in a semi-accurate, at least partial attempt to be accurate to the film. Now, the Hammond Collection release of this figure does not have tan on the tail whatsoever. It is also lacking this tan color down into the feet here. The feet are entirely red. Now, the legs are almost accurate, except this overdone splotching of paint here with this brown. This is also an issue on the body and neck. You can see on the figure right here, the splotching does not go into the leg at all, only up here by the hip. This is a very similar issue to the Raptor, where Mattel is overdoing the paint schemes just to not do colors that should be on the figure. I believe that if Mattel did not waste budget on putting these spots here, they could have put the underbelly color up into the tail, or at the very least painted the finger claws. So Mattel, if you're listening, please stop wasting money on these overdone patterns that aren't on the design. It's almost as if you're doing these from memory, because if you guys were referencing what you were doing, your figures would look a lot better and save you guys money, just like with the Raptor. Another issue real quick, you can see right there the horn color. That weird, gross kind of drywall pattern that the Stygi's dome has up here is not at all reflective as to what is on the design. You can see the design right there is kind of like a charcoal-y color for the horns. It starts out white, then fades off into a black. On this figure, they just casted it in a rubber light tan color across the entire upper part of the head here, and then they seem to have dry brushed it with a brown color rather than giving it a wash, which is what it should be for horns. This dry brushing, while I do appreciate that they're trying to branch out with different painting techniques, is not accurate and looks kind of gross if I'm being honest. And then another place where they're skipping out on paint right here, you can see at the back of the dome here, the base of the horns themselves right here are casted in that white rather than being painted, which looks unrealistic and kind of gross. These almost look like tentacles coming out of his head, or like as if he's wearing a hat or something. This looks unrealistic, gross, and honestly it's really lazy from Mattel. So yeah, those are my flaws with this thing's paint. I think they could have fixed it and made it a lot better if it was casted in orange. They traded off these extra patterns for underbelly color, and if they did the dome more proper. I think if they did those things and made it more similar to the mainline Stygi, it would have been a lot better and much more accurate, especially for a true FX release. Overall, my final verdict on this figure is that I'd say it's probably a 7 out of 10 for Mattel standards. I think this was coming from another company, I'd definitely give it like a 4 or 5, but considering how bad other Mattel releases have been, I'd say this is actually a pretty large step up. And now it's for that reason alone that I will not be returning this figure. I actually like it just enough to keep in my collection, as I don't have the Hammond Collection Packy, and I think this is an okay alternative. While it doesn't override its flaws, I will say that out of the main 3 that have came out in the small wave, I definitely recommend this figure the absolute most, as unlike the Raptor and Troodon, it's actually fairly close to what it's supposed to be. There are definitely a few really bad issues that I really would like Mattel to fix. However, I do think its good qualities, like this figure's fairly accurate sculpt, really do help a lot from alleviating those problems. I think out of all these issues I've listed, the one I want Mattel to fix the absolute most is probably this lower jaw. That jaw hinge has been a consistent issue with literally every single Hammond Collection release, like, in the entire line. This jaw hinge system that they do on their herbivores and carnivores looks unrealistic and frankly really bad, especially on these new True FX figures. And honestly, I think it's better for Mattel if they just abandon the True FX thing as a whole, because it's clearly not making any difference on the quality of the figures. And also, those new boxes really are not it. I've seen people who collect inbox posting their pictures of the True FX boxes next to the other ones, and god, does it look very unappealing. So yeah, if you want more reviews like this, leave a comment down below. I might be reviewing Spino sometime, I'm just not too sure when, as scalpers are getting to him in my area, and I really don't like that figure, so I might not even review it. And thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for 1,000 subscribers. I really didn't think that could happen just from one video alone, but the fact that it did happen is insane. It's taken years to get this moment, and I'm so happy that I finally achieved it. I'll be posting a more complex 1,000 subscriber special sometime soon, so look forward to that in the coming months. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.
From the stream on the river, stick, the dinosaurs got strange, they always live behind them, not be, but it's all just a show, with a head or the cat, there's only one they can know.